welcome Rachel.
Okay, hi, I'm Rachel, and for my Zenith, I chose to do illustration. And so to accomplish that, I chose to make a little booklet, which is right here. And I chose to make a booklet because I've always been a really big reader, and I obviously had to start reading somewhere, and that was with like illustrated children's books. So I thought it would be really cool to make one of my own. So what came first was my mood board. These are just like a bunch of stories that I read as a kid that I really like the illustration style of. I probably used If You Give a Mouse a Cookie the most as like my illustration inspiration, but you might recognize some of the others, like Chrysanthemum or any of them really. And then also my color scheme, I was surprised that it like actually stayed pretty much the same throughout. I was kind of expecting it to change a little bit, but it ended up pretty much as I had prepared it before. So yeah, and then my materials, my most important one was an iPad and Apple Pencil because I chose to do digital illustration. And for the digital illustration, I chose Procreate. They have a bunch of like different brush options, so that was really cool, and it's also like a very intuitive program. And then for the actual book, I printed it on matte photo paper, so that was obviously necessary. And then some other just like day-to-day things, I used staples to staple it together, just a normal printer. I used InDesign, and then just normal printer paper for all my test runs for printing. And then finally the internet, I used YouTube videos to learn how to do Procreate because I never used it before. And then also just like inspiration photos, and yeah, things like that. So first came my brainstorming. On the left is like my initial story brainstorming. I had a lot of ideas that I didn't pick, but I ended up going with making a story about a ginkgo tree and a mom and her daughter. I chose this because I recently read a book that where I learned that ginkgo trees lose all of their leaves in like 24 hours, which I thought was really interesting, that they don't lose them like throughout the season of fall. And then I also remember going on a lot of walks around the neighborhood with my mom as a kid. And I always really loved ginkgo trees, and I also thought that they would just be really visually interesting because they're so like bright green and yellow. So after that came like deciding what I wanted my illustrations to actually look like, how many pages I wanted, things like that. And then finally I tested out every single brush on Procreate to decide like what I wanted the book to look like, and I ended up using the 6B pencil and the Old Beach brush the most. So these are like my initial sketches that I did, and then here are like what they turned out as. I was surprised that they like didn't change that much. Like they stayed pretty similar from what I intended them to be, which I thought was interesting. And then I encountered a lot of obstacles with printing mostly. The rest of the process before that was pretty easy, but the printing was really difficult because basically how printing on a booklet works is you have to make sure that the like inside of one page is next to the outside of the next page. You can't just like print it on one sheet and then the next and then the next. So that was really difficult. InDesign has a way to do that, but because the printers that I was using didn't print like automatically double-sided, I had to like manually input all the page numbers in like the order that I wanted them, and then like manually flip them over and put them back in the printer. So that was a really tough process, but I feel like I learned a lot, and I think it's like cool that I can do that now. So I'm glad that it happened. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Lulu.
What did you learn as far as like illustrations? Like, do you think you like gained like skills and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always really liked drawing, and I've always found it very relaxing. But I've never really like had the time to just sit down and do it. So that was like, first of all, like very nice and like therapeutic. It gave me time to just like sit and draw. But I also, there was definitely a learning curve to Procreate. In my like original like first little sketches, they were like a lot rougher than what I ended up with. And then I also just experimented a lot with the different brushes. I used, I think, a total of like 4 or 5 brushes throughout, and I like kind of changed that as I went. So I think my later illustrations like probably look a little bit better than my like first illustrations. But yeah, I learned a lot about Procreate, And so yeah, I'm glad that I can use it now because then like I can use it in the future, which is exciting. Yeah, unique.
Did you add words to the story, or is it just the illustration?
No, it's just the illustration. I was originally gonna have words, but like as I was thinking through the story, I kind of, well, I don't know, I just like didn't know how to add them really because I was thinking more about the illustration first. So I think if I had thought of the words and then the illustrations after, that would have worked, but because I thought about it the other way, it like, didn't happen. Yeah, Jane?
What was your favorite part of like the illustration process?
I think just like sitting down and doing it, cause like I always have liked drawing. I just don't really do it that often and don't really have the time. So it was nice that I was able to like carve out time to just do it and like sit down, cause it's like very mind clearing and like calming. So I really liked that part. Yeah, Roberta.
What inspired like the story, and like could you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, so I used to go on walks like just around the neighborhood with my mom all the time. And there are a bunch of ginkgo trees like right by our street. And I remember just like seeing all the leaves on the ground and really liking them. And I used to like take them home and like put them in bowls of water and stuff. So I thought that was like, I don't know, that was a big inspiration. And then I had also recently read a book called The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. And he like had a whole chapter about ginkgo trees. And the fact that they lose all their leaves in like one like batch was like really interesting to me, and I thought it would be cool to like be there like while they all fell. So that was like kind of a combination of those two ideas. Yeah, Mr. Flo.
So I'm sure everybody in this room has a book that they remember when they were young, or had your parents read it to you and so on, right? So it's probably an inspiration for you. Are you thinking of maybe making more children's books? Because they can be a memorable thing for everybody.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. Lulu and I like actually were like working on an illustration project, and it was really fun. I wasn't doing the illustration part of it though. Lulu was doing that part. But I think it would be really cool to like keep going because it was really fun, and I really liked
Because we need
how
to
it
get
turned out.
young kids off of screens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be cool to keep going with that. Yeah.
I really have a question. I just want to say I saw your last frame. I think it was really cool.
Oh,
like
thank
the
you.
Two. I was like, oh, that's really
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.